If you saw this video of police searching a house pop up on your social media feed, you might be forgiven for thinking this is the police undertaking a really serious investigation, searching the house of some really dangerous criminal or terrorist or somebody that's plotting against the UK or someone responsible for some really heinous and nefarious crime, and they need to search for some evidence that links this person to said offence, such as a weapon of sorts or any other kind of evidence that might link them to an offence. And they really need to search this house. After all, there were 6 officers here, and they detained this guy afterwards for 8 hours. They questioned him. Ultimately, they let him off with a caution, and then they didn't really apologise the first time round, but when the Telegraph reported this story in full, they then changed their tune and apologised and deleted the guy's caution. So what was this guy doing that was so serious that had 6 officers raid his house, search his house, go through his private belongings, search through his drawers, his old papers of a tragic story where he lost his daughter many years ago, going through his private things, even, I'll play the video for you with the sound in a moment, but even while they're looking at his bookcase, you can hear one of the police officers murmuring very Brexity things. Now, I didn't know it was a crime to have supported Brexit. I mean, clearly, half of the population, more than half of the population supported Brexit. That's why we had Brexit. For the record, I voted Remain. So, you know, I do think Brexit could have worked well, but here we are. I don't think it worked well, but I voted Remain nonetheless. But what was it that this guy did? Let me play the video for you. Let me go back to the beginning, and I'll put the sound on. I'll mute myself. See if you can hear it. See if you can hear that it's very faint. You'll have to listen carefully. I'll play it twice so you can listen for it. Take a listen to this.
The public are onto it.
It was just there. Let me rewind and listen again. Very Brexity things, they murmured. So what was it this guy did? You've probably seen it already, but let's take a look. It was over a post on social media, on X. And so this has been chalked up now as a thought crime because he didn't do anything that was an offence. He did no crime at all. They raided his house, arrested and detained him and searched his house because they thought that he might have been up to no good. This was the post, Julian Fawkes, the second comment here, replying to somebody. You remember Suella Braverman said that she described all the marches in London as hate marches. Now, some of you support those marches. Some of you don't support those marches. Some of you support the cause. Some of you don't support the cause. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on. I can see the reasons for those marches. I can see the reasons people are against those marches and don't like them. That's absolutely not the point of this video here. But Suella Braverman described them as hate marches because of the nature of the way that they did. And after all, within reason and within the bounds of the criminal law, they have the right to protest peacefully, etc., etc. Have they crossed those lines on occasion? Well, clearly, because police have stepped in now and again. So Suella Braverman described them as hate marches. Agree with that or not? That's not the point. So this comment above it said, "Dear Suella Braverman, as someone who was on one of the hate marches, if you call me an anti-Semite, somebody against Jews, I will sue you." Now, Julian replied to that, and there's a twist in the meaning here, which if anyone with I support the police when they have a difficult job to do, but if anyone had have sat down and really thought for 2 minutes about what Julian really meant here, they wouldn't have even gone any further. And indeed, this had no reports by the public, no complaints at all. It somehow ended up on the police watch list, and I'll read some of the article to you in a minute. But he replied, "1 step away from storming Heathrow looking for Jewish arrivals." That was him expressing his views, which he's entitled to do, to opine that this sort of comment indicates that as a society we might be 1 step away from people storming Heathrow looking for Jewish arrivals. I'm not saying that it was the post above it that was implying that. I'm not saying anyone was actually going to do that, but Julian decided that that's what he was going to post. because that was how he felt and that's what he thought at the time. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Doesn't come anywhere near any criminal threshold of any offence whatsoever. And yet, the video you saw at the beginning is the police storming his house, detaining him, arresting him, and the Metropolitan Police Intelligence Command. And it's almost ironic that the Intelligence Command Unit flagged this tweet as concerns around online content. The post only had 26 views, had not been reported by the public, but 6 officers arrived, obviously armed with batons and pepper spray. Now, it's actually a sort of a pava spray. When I did my special constable training many years ago, we still used CS spray. And we had to be sprayed with that so that we knew what it was like, so that if ever we got it taken from us and sprayed with it, we knew what it was like. It wouldn't surprise us as much. We knew how to deal with it, and so on. Somebody didn't listen to the instructions and went to the bathroom afterwards, but you could use your imagination there. Now, you might have heard just recently about the M&S cybersecurity attack, which forced them to shut down all of their online sales and systems. In fact, even as I record this right now, it's still showing that they've paused online orders. Now, you might be thinking, if this can happen to a company like them, what about everybody else? Because surely they would have been prepared for this. Well, the reports suggest they were not prepared for this, and one might only wonder why. But how did this happen, and what can you do about it? Well, this can happen to anybody. In fact, all it means is that someone's got access to their system through some sort of nefarious link or software or download that they've done, and it's given them access to their system. Because it doesn't matter how big the system is, whether it's your laptop at home or a big system like M&S online sales. So what they've done is they've used a ransomware software to get access to their system so they can browse around all their data files, and then they've encrypted them with a ransom message to say, if you don't pay us this amount of money, we're going to release these on the web or do whatever with them. And they could do exactly the same for you. So how can you protect yourself from exactly the same thing? Well, I partner with NordVPN for precisely this reason, because I use NordVPN daily because I spend a lot of time online on lots of different websites for news and all sorts of stuff. And you never know when you get a bad link or a bad download file, which might be a malicious website, a malicious download, or some kind of software that compromises your system. You can even get what they call session hijackers. So if you're logged into your bank and you're logged into your email and you're logged into, I don't know, YouTube or whatever else on your browser, if you click a bad link and then they get a session hijacking software, they can take over your browser session and have access to everything you're logged into. But NordVPN will flag up these malicious websites and downloads and hopefully prevent you from going any further and having your system compromised. And as they're a partner to my channel, I get you 4 months extra free using the link nordvpn.com/bbb. Nice and easy. It's on screen. It's in the description below. It is cheaper than a cup of coffee. It's the easiest peace of mind you will have knowing that you are secure on the internet, and you've got this shield in front of you to flag up these malicious websites and hopefully prevent your system from being compromised, just like this one here. So hop on over to the link nordvpn.com/bbb. In fact, it will flag up whether your system is secure or not right when you visit the page. So check out NordVPN for your 4 months extra free, and the peace of mind, I promise you, is golden. Now, as it happens, then the reason I bring that up is this guy had served as a voluntary police officer, I think, for 10 years, I think? More than a decade, in fact. This guy had served voluntarily with the police force as a special constable. I've done my few years of that voluntary service, partly because it was serving the community, partly because it was an educational experience, and it helped in a number of different ways. Gives you a lot of life skills, life experience. Consider serving. You can go and get trained up with your local service and constabulary, and you can go and volunteer as a police officer. So this guy had served for more than 10 years. But then he was arrested, detained, and Kent police decided that his post was anti-Jewish. Now, here's the twist and the irony in this. They interpreted his post as anti-Jewish. Now, let's just go back to the post for a minute, because when you look at this, one step away from storming Heathrow looking for Jewish arrivals, you could take that in two ways. You could take that as him saying, we are one step away from doing that, that's what we're going to do. Or, from a worried perspective, we're one step away from this happening, this is concerning. as though other people are going to do that. Now, obviously, it was the latter. It wasn't him having any mind to do that whatsoever. He said to the Telegraph, it was the exact opposite. That if they'd looked at the full thread, they would have understood it. It would have taken 2 minutes to understand that. He said, I told them that there was more to it, but they didn't pause the interview to check. In the police interview, he denied 5 times that he intended to cause any distress, but that was just ignored, he said. The Telegraph reports that the police did not initially apologise, instead that they said the episode had provided learning opportunities. But following the publication of the story, obviously, once this gets some kind of traction in the media, they think that they then need to reply to it. So then they amended the statement and said Kent Police apologised to Mr. Fawkes for the distress caused and how the report was investigated. Mr. Fawkes said to the Telegraph that up to that point he had no direct apology from Kent Police, in fact no communication at all since 2023. Elton John said sorry seems to be the hardest word, which certainly seems to be appropriate in the circumstances. And indeed it does. Saying sorry is a really difficult thing to do. Admitting that you got something wrong is a really difficult thing to do. He said this morning, however, he received a call from the Kent Chief Constable Tim Smith, who offered his personal apology for the ordeal that he endured and vowed to thoroughly investigate the failings. And Julian said he was appreciative of this apology. But the problem that we have here is that now makes this all wrong. This whole action was wrong. And so my reason for this video, it's not sponsored in the least, but the only way we stop this sort of nonsense from happening, and with great respect to the police, I appreciate what you do. Any police officers watching, I know many of you personally, you know that I support what you do, you know that I support your work, you know that I think you have a difficult job, and you know that I don't like to criticise and bash police. I don't like to do that. But this has to stop, because this is obviously wrong. This guy meant nothing at all by that post. We cannot go around raiding people's houses, searching people's houses, detaining people, arresting people, questioning people for 8 hours, as it was reported here, over a post that did not come anywhere near the criminal threshold. And one of the reasons I do these videos and I bang on with these videos is because during the lockdown when I started this channel, I felt that people did not have enough access to the law. That became particularly prevalent in the lockdown because all the courts closed, loads of law firms closed. I had so many calls and emails because people were like, what do we do now? Because they're absolutely stressed. And one of the cases, I kid you not, one of the cases that came to us, ordinarily listing it for a hearing, the court said, having looked at the papers and given the lack of resources in the court system, we suggest the parties resolve the issue between themselves. Now, I'm not disagreeing with the court in that sense, because on the one hand, the court, some judge must have looked at this and thought, this is just a squabble over £200 or whatever it was. Surely they can work this out for themselves, because the time and the cost and the effort and everything else and the cost of running the court service, I agree that could easily have been resolved between themselves, or some other kind of alternative dispute resolution or whatever, or even AI, that I think they're going to trial that in the future. At the moment, they are trialing judges resolving these things without a hearing and without parties turning up for evidence. We've got one case going on at the moment where one guy says, you didn't fulfill the contract, so I want the money back. But the other side says, well, here's some emails that shows that, in fact, we did. We did do work under the contract, so you owe the money. So that's going to court. And in that case, the court thus so far has said, would you consider doing this without a hearing? Just let the judge decide based on what both parties say. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. And I think the court will look at that. And I think the court will look at that and say, well, that's quite obvious. Here's evidence that they've done the work. He says they haven't done the work, but there's evidence they've done the work. There it is. It takes 2 minutes. It would take 2 minutes to resolve this case. But coming back to the point, so that's why I do my videos. So please do subscribe. But back to the point here. The reason for this video is this is not over. They cannot just storm a house, search the house, detain the guy and keep him there for 8 hours questioning him when he did nothing wrong, which can only really be described as a thought crime, because how would they know what he was really thinking? They clearly did all this because they thought that he was thinking something wrong. But the Free Speech Union is on his case, and they have said, well, that's not good enough. They are now supporting, Free Speech Union is now, this is not a sponsored video, Free Speech Union is now supporting this chap who is now suing the police for wrongful arrest after being detained. wrongfully detained because, well, in my view, obviously the courts will decide, etc. So now the police are either going to have to decide that he's due compensation, or they'll come up with some sort of defense as to why he shouldn't have compensation and that they were right to sort of storm his house, etc. But Lord Toby Young and Free Speech Union have agreed to fund and proceed with this case to claim compensation. So I think this is the only way that these cases are going to stop and make the police stop and think before they do this sort of stuff. And, you know, if there's any police services watching and you want, let's say you wanted my take on such things, give me a call. You know, if you say, we're about to do this, do you think that's a sensible idea? And I would have looked at a case like this, and in 2 minutes I would have said, well, clearly not, because, you know, this guy was just making a comment on social media. It's clearly just his opinion. It's clearly just part of conversation. It would take someone like me all of 2 minutes to say, this will end badly. It'd be the wrong move, and ultimately you'll get sued for wrongful detention. It would take 2 minutes. If any police services are watching my videos here, I invite you to call me. In select cases, to avoid all this happening, I would act pro bono to say to the police, I don't think this is something you should follow any further. I would suggest you don't do it. So I invite you to get in touch. But for now, Free Speech Union are taking this on. There's a donate button here, or you can join as a member. I am a gold member. I suggest if you value your free speech, join Free Speech Union. Again, not a sponsored video. I just see them doing great things and supporting people and supporting free speech. I'll link them below. I'll link the story below. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I think this is just utterly absurd. I'm embarrassed on behalf of the police. I am grateful that they have made an apology for this incident. It takes a lot of humility and a lot of courage, and I admire Chief Constable Smith in this case for making that personal apology. All credit to him for taking that step and taking the responsibility. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, please, and as always, thank you for watching.